It's that time of month again where I give a Q&A. So let's see what I will be asked. Alright. So I purposely did it for Operation Flywheel since it's been what I've been talking about this month. So it says, here are 10 questions that progressively dig into the concept. Humans, yada yada. Okay. Question 1. Hang on. Let me get my notes ready. So I get my timestamps ready. What is Operation Flywheel in one sentence? It's a financial system I created that puts you 2 months ahead on non-negotiable expenses. Like rent, for example. If you pay rent out of your credit, it gives you access to the full income each month plus any money that's left over from the previous month. So those two will get added together. You can use it against that and other things. So that's the concept. 2. What problem does Operation Flywheel solve that traditional budgeting doesn't? It gives you access to the full income you get each month. Simple as this. Instead of having the much lesser, now in some cases, sorry, I had to end the video and then had to redo this. So, question 2. What problem does Operation Flywheel solve that traditional budgeting doesn't? Well, if you have access to full income by paying your expenses 2 months in advance, you get that full income, as opposed to a few $100s. Well, let's say instead of dollars, you say a reduced percentage of the income at this maximum efficiency, which includes, like I said, which includes the income of next month plus the previous month combined together to use against debt. So, I gotta write these timestamps. So question 3. Why is the primary goal to build reserves first instead of paying off debt immediately? Well, you can't pay off debt immediately if you're, like in my case, I make $994 a month. Well, if I was going to pay the rent and I was going to rent alone to give me $600 left over that month, but then you have to deal with other things like putting money, a few $100s on the card, which only leaves me a few, like $100 probably max each month on average. So I don't get anywhere with that. Now, it is true that I can spend the entire $994 plus the previous month of anything left over combined on the next. So I'm borrowing from the future. So by building those reserves, you get access to the full amount, and you can get much farther ahead 2 to 3 times faster than you normally would. If not faster on bigger things as well. Like if I was buying money, like I'm about to make a $3,000 purchase, for example, that would take me at least 6 months to 8 months to pay off, if ever, traditionally. But with Operation Flywheel, $994 going towards that each month, yeah, it's less than 6 months. So yeah, much faster doing it that way. It says, alright. Question 4 is, what is the significance of the 1 to 2 months reserve threshold? It just gets you ahead, because if you make a mistake and you use your credit card where you can't use that $400, well, if you're making only $100 or $200 left over each month, well, that puts you 2 months behind, because in my case, I gotta have $400 each month on my credit card available to access that $994 the following month. So if I only have $100, well, on average each month, let's say I have $100 for each month, that puts me 4 months behind. You see the big difference there? So that's why you gotta have that 1 or 2 month reserve threshold. And when it says 2 months, you're always 1 month ahead, right? Because you're already counting that month. Next month is month 0. So I'm always 1 month ahead, but on paper it's 2 months. Question 5. Why do you call rent the anchor or non-negotiable expense of the system? Because rent is the only bill I have to pay. And it's also the highest. For example, like my credit cards, you see the minimum payments. They're around $40. The highest one is for a firm, which is $76 a month. If I use rent, then I have that as a way to propel me to access that full amount. So if I was going to use a firm $76 a month, and I use that instead, well, that only puts me what is 76 times 2? That's 152. 152, I might as well just pay everything off in minimums plus the rent. I mean, 152 isn't going to get me anywhere. And also, that's coming from my cash, my direct cash. So rent, I actually have to pay in cash to pay my rent. Everything else is done through digital transactions. So that rent is actually playing a big role in what I'm doing. Operation Flywheel. Six. How does Operation Flywheel use credit differently from the way most people use credit cards? Well, use debt to create. Well, actually, this is a very deep question. So you're using it to pay for an expense. It's like a business. When you use money to pay off a business expense, you can put a credit on your prepaid expenses, like for example supplies or manufacturing. Instead of that, it's putting it towards rent. So you're building it up from your cash reserves. And that's how the rich get rich. You learn this in Robert Kiyosaki, if you read his books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You hear about that and how that system works. It's a mindset. And you use that credit to create money to use on other expenses without damaging yourself, using debt to buy debt. And a lot of people don't, there's people who hear that one way and there's another that hears the other way. But if you hear a certain way and you can see the expansion of it, it makes sense. To other people, you say, well, you're just burning money. They don't see the long-term benefit of it. If it works, it doesn't. If it does, it will work really well. 7. What happens after the flywheel reaches its threshold? How does the system change? Now, what do you mean by threshold? Are you talking about hitting the rent and having that prepaid months in advance? Or are we talking about threshold after paying the debt? I'll answer both of those questions. If you're talking about the first, about having that money put in prepaid, then you're actually all wasting money a bit. I mean, you could do it like 3 or 4 months ahead, but if you're already paying that off like 2 months ahead, and you still got money left, I mean, you could do it, but you're just doing it for like, I don't know. I've been thinking about that. I don't even know what you would even call that, but there's a certain moment where it gets kind of ridiculous after a while. I mean, I guess that makes sense if you have like a job and you don't know if you're going to be working there the next month, and you got to have that mindset. But in my particular case, I don't have that problem. The second thing is the threshold of actually paying off your debt. Well, when you do that, you can afford, like I said in one of my previous videos, you can buy 90 cases of soda in 1 month. Well, coming out of next month. And then the next month after that, you can buy $900 worth of pizza rolls, and then it gets paid off. And then the next month after that, $900 in whatever, egg rolls, steaks, whatever. And then the next one, it's always accumulating more with the money you make each month. So it just shows you how it works. It's working at maximum efficiency. So the system doesn't change itself, but it definitely can change how you buy things and see what you can put money into months ahead. And that's what it's all about. That doesn't change. Seeing months ahead doesn't change. It's what you're able to afford. That stuff can change. So question 8. What are the biggest risk or failure points of Operation Flywheel? The biggest failure point, like I said before, is if you're having a credit card and you're spending on that credit card, and you spend over what you know you can put out, or it might be a mistake that you do. You gotta recuperate that money next month, or it might take you a few months to get back on track, and you gotta start over again. So you always gotta make sure you're on point. And the good thing about seeing it ahead of time, you can see all your expenses, map them all out, and you can know how much you can spend ahead of time. Like right now, after I know that next month, even if I max out my credit card this month, I know that my other credit card will be paid off in full. But I can't use that next one because I'm gonna have to use that for the $400, because on my other cards, they're gonna go over the limit. And I'll show you that in the next video. I got that mapped out as well, what that would look like, so I don't make that mistake. So question 9. Question 9 is, can Operation Flywheel be applied to businesses or governments, or is it only designed for personal finance? This is a good question. Businesses use this all the time. It's called velocity banking. They're just using it with millions and millions of dollars at a time. I'm using it less than 1,000, which is crazy, but it's working. They also use it to do debt, to get down their debts. But it's rare to see something like this. Now, governments can also use it. This is also an interesting question. There was a time where the U.S. government, well, this was before it was called the U.S. government, but Continental Congress, they were issuing $500. Let me see if I can remember this. So George Washington, when he was before he created America as we know it today, he was creating a spy network called the Copper Ring, and he had $500 monthly to pay for that. And that, there was a whole thing. It's a whole thing, but so he was using the spy network to spy on the British, and this is what funded the American Revolution. So it is based on Now, I wouldn't say it's based because I didn't come up with this idea from that, but it has been used, and then you can use that to prepay it from Congress months in advance, that $500 for the aspiring, and then you can use that money to go out to Virginia, Maryland, and all these colonies to fund them up and create military stuff. So that has happened. So it's way beyond what it's scalable. The Culpering, CULPER, for those who were wondering. So, question 10. If someone wanted to build their own Operation Flywheel, what would be their very first step they should take? Well, you should look at the spreadsheet, see how I'm doing the income, do all your expenses. It's interesting because no one likes to know what their expenses are each month. No one wants to go in there knowing what their expenses are because they're afraid of knowing what it's going to say. But when you have a system like this put in place, and you can see things happen in the future, and you can actually manipulate what's happening in the future, that's a lot more control, and that's much more motivational than being dreaded by seeing the past hitting you each month and having that all tracked. I know what that feels like, and it's no one wants to know that. Everyone wants to know what the future is, and having that kind of control of the future, and that's a lot more gives you much more self-discipline than looking at the past and trying to penny pinch your way through things. And that's what people with debt do. They want to get ahead by taking out little things, or going out eating beans and rice for 6 months, trying to get a little bit ahead and saying, well, our lives are going to change up to this point. Operation Flywheel, like I said, it's going to account for all that, and it's going to push you way far ahead. And you can see that through the numbers. So, I know that those are really the main questions about Operation Flywheel. And it says, those 10 questions definitely move from what is it to how does it work, why does it work, where can it fail, and finally, how do I use it? Which is good structure for introducing a new financial concept. So guys, I'll end it here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.